Are you spending more but not making more? Ted is here to discuss it. Let's begin.
This is Debt Free in 30. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
This is episode number 523. Did you know that? 523 episodes of the Debt Free in 30.
Happy season 11 to you.
This is season 11, the season premiere for season 11. Do podcasts have seasons? No. But we still call it the season premiere because we're recording this for the beginning of September.
And we're old.
Yes, indeed. So I'm Doug Hoyes. That's Ted Michalos. Welcome to season number 11. Now, you and I talk to like typical people, average people every day.
That's true.
We don't talk to a lot of billionaires.
Not recently.
I don't know if I ever, I don't talk to them a lot. And so on my cue cards here that you just saw, because that's the way we do this, you sit down and then you see them. I had said that there are two groups of people, but really there's three groups of people.
That's right.
So group number one is everything is great.
I thought you were going to play that Lego song. Everything is awesome.
See, I don't know.
I won't sing anymore because I don't know
the Lego song. I'm going to have to get that CD or 8-track or whatever.
Whatever.
So group number one, everything's great. So the events of 2020 hit, which we like to put in the back of our mind.
And it didn't bother them very much.
No, it was great because according to my research, the S&P, which is the U.S. stock index, if you go from August 2019 up until the end of the summer, 80% increase. That's pretty good. The MLS, average home price sold, was up about 37% during that period.
Right.
And if you looked from 2019 to 2022, which was the peak, 60% increase.
Yeah. So it's corrected, but
it's corrected, but still, it's like that's
37% is not horrible.
So that's the upper echelon. Everything is
the
great.
affluent Canadians.
The affluent Canadian. Then you got the middle group, which is kind of the middle group where
it's Joe Average.
It's Joe Average. It's okay. Whatever.
I'm getting by.
If
something goes wrong, it's tough.
Then you got group number three, which kind of are screwed.
Right.
So they didn't own any assets when the events of 2020 happened.
So the stock market going up didn't help them. House prices didn't help them.
Nope. And in fact, I'm a renter, so my rent has probably gone up.
Right.
So here's some stats. I got show prep here. For 5 months between September 22 and January 2023, food inflation was over 10%. And that's if you believe the government stats.
Which I don't,
which
because I'm the fellow who buys the groceries.
There you go.
Up more than that. Yep.
Yeah, because the government assumes, I couldn't buy, steak, so now I'm buying, tofu or something. I don't know what you replace steak with. And so my overall costs have gone up 10%, but if I was buying exactly the same basket of good, way higher. So from June 2019 to June 2024, that's a 5-year period. According to StatsCan, food costs are up 26%, shelter costs also up about 26%.
Okay.
And if you look at the entire CPI, everything is up about 18%. Okay, so what? Well, the average hourly wage rate between 2019 and 2023, and I notice I'm not comparing apples to oranges here because I don't have the full data for 2024 yet.
And we don't want to do that anyway.
Now we're too complicated. So according to Stats Canada, the average hourly wage went from $28.32 to $33.55, which is an 18.5% increase.
Convenient for the government that the numbers are the same, huh?
CPI, exactly. So the overall CPI, not quite the same period, roughly 18% increase. However, unemployment in Ontario was in the 5 to 6% range in 2017, 18, 19, spiked up to 14% in May 2020, and is now down to 7%, but it is climbing again.
Right.
So you got this group of people who wage costs have not gone up as much as things like food and shelter.
Right.
And so, yes, I understand that the overall CPI basket might have gone up by the same amount that wages have gone up. But if you were at the lower income, you're spending more on food and shelter.
That's right. I mean, when you look at the basket, somebody that's at the bottom of the scale is spending significantly more on their rent and their food than somebody at the top. The 18% hides all of that.
Yeah, if you make $20,000 a month and you're renting, well, okay, you're not spending half your income on rent probably.
Right.
Whereas somebody who's making $2,000 or $3,000 a month
easily
is.
Yep.
So it's that's why we emphasize those numbers. So what do you do, and what have people done over the last 2, 3, 4 years when expenses are going up more than their income is going up.
Right. So you're not asking for advice on what you should do. It's what do we practically see that
Yes.
people have done. And so the first thing you do is you eat up your savings. And unfortunately, the people in that bottom third don't have a lot of savings anyway. And so the next thing they do is they turn to credit. And so instead of using credit cards to buy things and paying them off at the end of the month, they end up using them for essentials. You need the cash advance for the groceries because all your pay is going to pay your rent. And so suddenly your debt levels are rising because every month you're behind the 8 ball.
And the statistics bear that out because total credit card debt was $73 billion in February 2021,
Right.
which was actually lower than it was prior to that because, as you said, there was a deleveraging that happened.
Right.
So when the lockdowns hit, it's like, well,
I don't think I used that word.
no, you wouldn't have used that word. So let me not use the big words here. The lockdown hits. I can't spend any money anywhere.
So I paid down my debt.
So I pay down my debt. If I've still got some income coming in, I
Right.
use it to pay down my debt. So credit card debt in Canada got down to $73 billion in February 2021. And now it is, of course, well over $100 billion,
Right.
which is the highest level ever. We've actually got higher. And that's the people in that group that got screwed.
Right.
If your house went way up in value, if your stocks went way, or in your case, your crypto went way up in value. Ted's a huge crypto guy.
My what?
He's got a special podcast
Isn't that a
just
TV,
for crypto.
The Tales of the Crypto?
That's the one. That's exactly it. So you're doubly screwed. I don't
Right.
have the benefit. I have to resort to debt. Now, we kind of skipped over the other thing we've seen people doing, which is, well, see if I can get a second job, see if
Right.
I can cut my expenses. But very few people can work 160 hours a week.
Well, and the problem with expenses, your income can change overnight. So you can get that second job or lose that second job. But when your costs go up, you can't just suddenly say, well, I'm going to break my lease or I'm going to get rid of my car or I'm just going to start eating bologna. I mean, when your living expenses go up, it takes a long time to adjust them.
Yeah, and there may not be anything you can do to adjust them.
Right.
So, okay, I'm paying $2,000 a month in rent now, and the rent's going up, to a higher number than that. I can't just find $1,000 a month place to live.
Right. Unless there aren't any.
There aren't. It doesn't exist. Unless, okay, I'm going to have a couple of roommates. I'm going to move back in with family or whatever, which is.
But again, you can't do that overnight.
No. And you're right. I got a lease. I got to wait for it to, go through. I'm looking for another job. Well, again, we got 7% unemployment.
Right.
And is that 7% unemployment a real number?
You got all the people that dropped out of the workforce, and you got the people that are underemployed, and you got the people that are now doing the whole gig thing and doesn't really hit the system. So
right, and underemployed is a huge thing because during the boom times, well, I'm working overtime. I'm doing 44 hours a week, 50 hours a week. Now I'm doing 30 to 35. I still show up as employed,
right?
But obviously my income has gotten hammered a lot more. So what do you see happening over the next 6 months, the next year? None
of this is going to change. I mean, the central bank has started dropping interest rates. They're not going to come down fast enough to make a big enough impact on people. And I just don't see wages increasing in the next 6 months enough to catch up on all this as well. So anybody that's already behind is going to continue to be behind.
Well, and if we have high unemployment and it's going up, why would wages go up?
Right. Well, because it's the wages for like any average, right? The wage figure is a composite of the whole system. So the people that are in demand, their wages are going up pretty well because they're in demand. Problem is all the lower end jobs, the low skilled, those are the ones where they can beat people down.
Yeah, and we're not going to get into the whole discussion of immigration and all the rest of it. You can leave your comments for us on YouTube, and
please don't.
We'll ignore them because that's not our purview here. But yes, I agree with you, and you're hitting on the key point that again the media and most people don't get, and that is there's a time lag.
Right.
So you're right. The Bank of Canada raised interest rates, then they lowered them. Now they're into that lowering cycle, but lowering rates a quarter of a point or half a point or a full point doesn't instantly mean a house price goes from $1 million to something affordable.
Well, and then there's the psychology behind it as well. Okay, so they've lowered rates a little bit, but I'm still afraid because they went up so fast and I didn't have any money. So I'm still not going to change my patterns because I'm a coward.
Well, or a realist.
Right.
Could be that.
Pragmatic. Let's use that word.
That would
That's
be a better word, yes. And when rates are coming down, that's not a good thing. It's because we're in a recession or heading into one.
That the government refuses to.
Right.
That's a different conversation.
Well, and you and I in our year-end podcast in December of 2023, I mean, I certainly said we would be in a recession by now.
Yep.
And I still stand by that.
Right.
And
they're just not calling it that.
Yeah. And there's many instances in history when they called the recession a year and a half after it started.
Right.
And so I think when you look at all the numbers, and again, I know there's what people are going to say because I see it on Twitter or X all the time. They go, you're saying that we're in a recession. That's ridiculous. Look at all the things. Stock market is still good. Real estate prices are still high. Unemployment's a little higher, but it's still really low.
Right.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't. In fact, probably I don't. But I'm, quite strongly of the view that we're clearly heading in that direction.
Well, and again, we're talking about the three divisions of the population, right? We're focused on the bottom division because those are the people we deal with day in and day out. So it doesn't have to be a full-blown technical recession for that bottom to be suffering, and those people are suffering.
Yeah, you lose your job, you're in a recession.
Right.
Or maybe a depression.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to lose your job. You just lose all the overtime you used to have.
And your expenses are going up and you're toast. So, okay, what can the typical person do? And the reason I'm asking you this question is, like I said, this is the season premiere of the podcast. And what we are going to focus on this year, I have decided.
In season 11.
Is as much practical stuff as we can.
Right.
So, I mean, you and I love talking economic theory and everything, but the listeners going, okay, we don't really care what.
We're glazing over. That's right.
Yeah. Give me something practical I can deal with. So what is that typical person supposed to do? And perhaps we're talking about the person, not the rich guy, but the person who's feeling the crunch. What is the generic advice that you give them?
So there's two sides to every budget. There's the money coming in, there's the money going out. So let's focus on the money coming in half first. If you've got a certain amount of income, obviously the thing to do is there any way you can increase your income? So the short-term answer is I get a second or a part-time job on the side.
And how many people are you dealing with who have done that? They're driving for Uber, they're doing retail, they're working at the bar on the weekends.
Yep. And easily a third, quarter of the people that we're seeing every day have already done that because they had no choice. I can't pay the rent. I got to find some more money. And then now you're back to the 7% unemployment rate. And can you even find a job that's compatible? And what do the hours do? And all of these folks that's worked those second jobs, they're too tired to do the groceries. They don't want to come home and cook. So their living expenses go up. Maybe not as much as their income has gone up, but it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It's a Band-Aid, and it's a Band-Aid that I don't think is a decent long-term solution.
Well, and we've got lots of clients who either drive for Uber or Uber Eats.
Right.
And, okay, if you're living in downtown Toronto and you got a bicycle, you could be doing Uber Eats. But Uber, you need a vehicle.
Right.
And you need a decent vehicle because it has to get from point A to point B.
Yep.
So rather than giving up your vehicle and taking transit, no, I got to keep putting money into it. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a kind of a false economy there.
Well, nobody's really sure that they're making money driving for Uber until you find out at the end of the year. Most people, they think they got cash coming in, but.
Well, and if you have one car repair that got accelerated because of all the extra driving.
Right.
Like what happened to my car? That thing broke on it, the condenser or something.
Right.
And of course, every car repair, it's always $1,000 or $5,000 or whatever.
Just to look at it.
Just to look at it. Because we got to pull the thing out and do the thing with the thing and the thing.
Right.
So, okay, every day with Uber, I'm making $50 over and above paying what I pay for gas.
Wear and tear in the car.
So, if I have to pay $1,000 for a repair, then all of a sudden it's gone. So, So increasing your income absolutely is what a lot of people are doing. Not quite as easy as it sounds.
Right. And you can certainly go ask your boss for a job, and hopefully they don't fire you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need more hours. I need more work. And picking up a second job is great. But number one, there's only so many hours in the day. What if you got a family?
Right.
And can you find a job that doesn't conflict with your first job?
Well, and you can't work those two jobs long term. So again, it's a Band-Aid. If you 6 months of working 60 to 75 hours a week, and you're not going to be much good to anybody.
Yeah, you're going to burn out. You're going to get sick. Something's going to happen. And again, it depends on the job, I guess.
Right.
I mean, if you do a job like ours where we just do podcasts all day long, then maybe it's not as hard. But there's people who actually do real jobs out there, that are working hard,
working for a living.
Exactly. Okay, so that's the increased income side of it.
Right.
The other side of it is the decreased expenses side.
Right. So if you've done all that you can about the income, the money coming in, then the next thing is, are there ways to decrease the money going out? And so longer term, you need to look at things like your living expenses versus your vehicle expenses. Short term, it's just, all right, are there things that I can discontinue? I mean, most people have a couple of streaming services that they've probably forgotten they got. Their automatic payments coming out. Look at that. Look at your, downgrade the quality of some of the foods. You're not buying steak anymore. Now you're buying pork and chicken, although chicken's ridiculously expensive too. I mean, it's just all the little things. They will add up. It probably won't give you a long-term solution either, but it may give you some relief while you try to put some of these longer-term solutions in place.
Yeah, and you're right. It kind of is a Band-Aid, because if my Netflix costs $10 or $20 a month, whatever it is, okay, if I cut that out, that saves me $10 or $20 a month. Right. But if
you're short 500, that's not going to do it.
The math just doesn't work.
Right.
So now we totally agree that that's a great place to start. So print out I guess people don't print anything anymore. It would be on your phone or on your computer.
However you can look at it. Take a look at all these transactions. I mean, first, let's assume you're not using cash for anything anymore, so that it's all on your banking app. You can see it there, and then go through and say, okay, I spent this on, I don't know, whatever. What's an old streaming service nobody uses anymore? Doesn't matter.
AOL? Is that a thing?
I still have a buddy who has an AOL email address. It's pretty funny.
MySpace? You're big on MySpace.
He's 74.
There you go. Yeah, it's looking at that, my credit card statement, my bank statement. What is every item on it? And some of them, it's like, okay, I went to the grocery store. I understand what that is. But here's the pre-authorized payments to Netflix, Disney,
whatever,
Amazon Prime, whatever.
Yep.
And again, we're talking about $10 or $20 each. This is not going to solve every problem you've got. But if you can shave a couple of bucks here and there, well, that's a couple of hours less that you have to work at the second job.
When you're going to the grocery store, take a list and stick to the list. Don't do the stuff at the end of the aisles, which are the impulse purchases. I mean, there are all sorts of things you can do. And in and of themselves, none of them will solve the problem, but they all help. And it also indicates a change in your mindset. And that's probably the biggest win that comes out of any of this. You're going to try and increase your income if you can, decrease your expenses, but now you're looking at every dollar that you spend to say, wait a minute, did I need to spend that dollar?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's the mindset, because when times are good and I got extra money, well, I don't need to budget.
Right.
I got cash. I do it. Whereas now, okay, we've all been forced to be a lot more selective at what we spend our money on. And that's a good thing. And there is that big grocery store boycott,
right?
Which, again, they're not a sponsor of this show, so I don't really care what they think of me.
And I don't know that it made a difference, but
well, and I guess we'll know in due course. But what it did do is what you just said. It changed people's mindset.
Right.
So I know lots of people who've said, you know what, I'm not shopping at that store unless I absolutely have to. Mm-hmm. I've started going to the farmer's market. I found the little stores. I got to shop at a couple of different places. I think Costco has benefited huge, because that's everybody's going there. But that's a good thing. I'm forcing myself to think. I'm using the Flip app to see what's on sale and doing all those things.
We're all creatures of what's the word I'm looking for? Habit. That's exactly right. We'll just keep doing what we've been doing no matter what. And forcing yourself out of those habits every once in a while is a very good thing.
Well, and you've been at the same bank since you were 7 years old.
Right.
As has every single listener on this show. That's probably not true, but it's not totally off. So if you're at a bank and they're charging you $10 or $20 a month in fees, are you getting your value?
Right.
Because if you're not, well, there are other options. There's banks that don't charge any money or whatever.
A great example is insurance. If you don't shop around every 2 or 3 years, they'll just keep renewing you, and 10% increase this year. Sorry, that's just the way it was.
Yep. And when you look at the inflation numbers in the U.S., car insurance is the biggest increase of any category of anything. It's just absolutely incredible. So I agree, looking around and seeing. So, okay, so the point of this show today is, as I said, it's our season number 11.
We're setting the tone.
And as I said already, the focus is going to be on practical advice in our current economic climate. So I am of the view we are not in boom times where jobs are aplenty and we're all making tons of money. I think we're in a much more constrained environment. So what we plan to focus on is discussing the common debt scenarios and how to overcome them. That's kind of what this podcast is all about. So next week, I've got a special guest, David Barnett, who's been on the show before, and we're going to discuss a common situation we see today, which is I've lost my job.
Mm-hmm.
I can't find a new job. So I've decided to either start a business or buy a business, not because I want to be an entrepreneur.
Didn't have any choice.
I got no choice.
Right.
It's out of economic necessity. I've got to do it. So how does that work exactly? Like, how can I start a business if I don't have any money?
Right.
Like, it's great if you can go borrow $1 million and buy a building and get started, but how do you do that if you don't have any resources? What kinds of businesses should you be focused on? And, you can tune in next week and find out. But
right.
I think when you think about it, it's like, okay, it's probably going to be more on the service side than on the I'm going to build electronic vehicles side.
Let's not steal David's thunder. Right?
There you go. So that's, again, very practical what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to have other guests this year as well, but most of the podcast, it's going to be you and me. Sorry,
okay.
Ted, you're going to have to make the long trek across the hall to come here.
To the studio.
To the studio here. And, we'll have some of our other Hoyes Michalos people as well, but we want to focus on the practical stuff. So some of the topics we've got coming up, and of course, you won't find this out until you sit in that chair when we're going to record it. But
right.
Why is it so hard to get out of debt? What you need to know about credit repair and what scams to avoid. That's going to be good. I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
What happens if you inherit debt? Huh? Now I know viewers are going, you can't inherit debt.
Oh, sure you can.
That's not, we're going to talk about it. When is debt good? Okay. And if it is good, well, how much is okay? We're going to, bash the popular budgeting techniques that don't work as well in an episode. So there's lots more we're going to talk about.
Right.
And again,
it's a bit busier.
Yeah, it's going to be very practical. So I will end with the commercial. Make sure you're hitting the notification button and the like button and the subscribe button. And if there's any other buttons you can hit, like just hit them all. A new podcast comes out on YouTube every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Toronto time. But for our audio viewers, I release it at 6 a.m.
There you go.
Because I know you like to go for your run at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning and you want it fresh then.
Exactly.
So you can and we actually do have people who do that every week. So, good for them. So they come out. Again, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever all the different ones are. So please like and subscribe to those. So that's what's coming up in season number 11. Now, if you're watching this and you got, gee, I'd really like you to talk about this. Well, there's a comment section on YouTube there.
Right.
Send us what you want us to talk about and we'll do that. But that's our focus, practical. So there you go, Ted. That's season number 11. We kept this one a little shorter than usual because it is the Labor Day long weekend.
Well, put the sponsors bits in here.
Oh, yes. If you want to sponsor the podcast, it's been 11 years, 523 episodes. We have not got a sponsor. And I think the reason is, who would sponsor this?
Well, we haven't been sued yet either.
We have
so
not
that's
been.
kind of. So I think we're okay.
Like if the big bank came to you and said, "Hey, Ted, we'd like to sponsor the podcast," our answer would be, "Okay, how much?"
I guess we're not stupid.
No, I mean, I guess if someone's going to throw millions of dollars at us, then I think.
What's the line from Arthur? I'm not stupid. I took the money.
Yeah, that's right. So, but. It's unlikely that anybody is going to be coming in. But hey, if you got lots of money, you know how to reach us. We're happy to do it. Otherwise, this is the Debt Free in 30 podcast presented by Hoyes Michalos because I'm Hoyes and you're Michalos. So that is our show for today. That is the season premiere for season number 11. Please like and subscribe. Until next week, thanks for listening. I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30.